Imagine you are lying on your bed one evening, you pick up your phone, you open Facebook, then you see one headline. Registering your business in Nigeria can cost over 2 billion naira. Your heart skips, you say, 2 billion. Na business I wan register abi na refinery I wan build. You quickly check the comments. One person write, Nigeria don finish. Another say, na why people no dey register business. Somebody else confidently replies, government no wan make small businesses grow. Then, just like that, without asking one question, without checking one fact, without opening one official website, thousands of people believe it. My brother, my sister, welcome to the age of viral information, where headlines travel faster than truth, where confidence is mistaken for competence, and where WhatsApp University graduates thousands of students every single day. But this particular headline refused to leave my mind, because if it was true, then something was seriously wrong. How can one young entrepreneur selling perfumes in Mushin be expected to pay billions before registering a company? How can one tailor in Abeokuta trying to expand her shop suddenly hear that registration costs more than the value of her entire family compound? How can one barber who is just trying to move from one chair to opening his own shop see that headline and still believe entrepreneurship is possible? Something wasn't adding up. So instead of forwarding the message, I decided to investigate it, not as an accountant, not as a lawyer, but as one ordinary Nigerian entrepreneur asking ordinary Nigerian questions. Because sometimes the biggest business lessons don't start inside a boardroom, they start with one simple question: is this really true? You know something I've noticed? Fear spreads faster than facts. The moment Nigeria hears one scary number, our imagination starts doing overtime. We stop asking who paid it. We stop asking under what circumstances. We stop asking, does this apply to everybody? Instead, we simply conclude, business no be for poor man again, Joe. But conclusion can be dangerous when they are built on incomplete information. Yoruba people say, "Akengbejo eyan kan kada ejo." You don't hear one side of a story and immediately give judgment. That proverb is not only for a family meeting, it is for business too, because one wrong assumption can stop one great dream. Now, let me tell you why this documentary matters. This is not really about 2 billion naira. No, this is about something much bigger. It is about how misinformation quietly kills ambition, how one misunderstood business concept can discourage thousands of future entrepreneurs, how one viral post can stop somebody from taking the first step. Imagine a young graduate, he finally saves enough money, he wants to register his business, then he sees registering your business can cost over 2 billion naira. He closes his laptop, he tells himself maybe business is only for rich people. Just like that, a dream dies. Not because it wasn't possible, but because nobody explained the truth. And that is why today we are not just going to answer our question, we are going to investigate it. Like detectives, we will separate rumors from reality, noise from knowledge, headlines from facts. Because here on Street MBA with Kapick, we don't build businesses on assumption, we build them on understanding. Now, take a deep breath, because what I discovered was even more surprising than the headline itself. You see, the headline wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. And sometimes a half-truth is more dangerous than a complete lie. The real question is not, can business registration cost billions? The real question is, who exactly is paying that money and why? Or more. When I found the answer, I realized I've been asking the wrong question all along. Let's investigate. There's one rule I've learned in business. Whenever you hear one shocking claim, don't ask, is this true? Ask, who benefits if I believe this? That question alone has saved people millions of naira. So I did what every entrepreneur should do. I stopped listening to social media and I started looking for evidence. Not rumors, not screenshots, not voice notes from one uncle in one WhatsApp group. Evidence, because business is too serious to be built on hearsay. Then I discovered something interesting. The headline wasn't born on Facebook, it wasn't born on TikTok, it wasn't born on WhatsApp. It started with people seeing registration fees attached to very large companies and assuming those same figures apply to everybody. And that is how misinformation spread. One person misunderstand, 100 people repost it, 1 million people believe it. Welcome to the internet. Let me ask you something. If I tell you some houses in Lagos cost over 100 billion naira, would you immediately conclude that every Nigerian must buy a 100 billion naira house? Of course not, because common sense tells you there are different houses for different peoples at different stages of life. Business registration works in a similar way. These different businesses have different needs, different structure, different responsibilities, different legal requirements. Yet somehow many people compress everything into the one frightening headline: business registration costs 2 billion naira. Omo, that's like saying transportation costs 50 million naira because somebody bought a private jet. It sounds dramatic, but it hides the truth. Now, here is where the story become even more interesting. The more I investigated, the more I realized the discussion was never really about CSV. It was about something many entrepreneurs have heard, but very few truly understand: share capital. Don't worry, don't run away because you heard grammar. Stay with me. By the end of this documentary, even if you've never studied accounting, you will understand it like you are explaining it to your younger brother. Because Street MBA with Kapick believes every complicated business idea can be explained using everyday Nigerian life. Imagine your mother wants to cook jollof rice for 100 guests. She opened the kitchen, then she checked the cupboard. Only one paint rubber of rice. Can she feed 100 people? No, not because she cannot cook, but because the scale of the assignment is bigger than the resources available. Business is the same. The bigger the dream, the bigger the structure required. The bigger the structure, the different the rules become. And that is exactly why many people got confused. They saw rules meant for giant corporations and assumed they apply to the woman selling Ankara in Oshodi, the POS operator in Abeokuta, the phone repair technician in Computer Village, and the barber in Mushin. No wonder people panicked. You know what pains me the most? Fear has stopped many Nigerian businesses than lack of talent. Some people never registered because they thought it was impossible. Some never expanded because they believe business had become a game for billionaires. Some never even started, not because they lack idea, not because they lack skills, but because they lack the right information. And ignorance always sends an invoice. Sometimes that invoice is bigger than money. It costs confidence, it costs opportunities, it costs dream. Yoruba people say àìmọ̀ kì í ṣe àìlera, ṣùgbọ́n àìfẹ́ kọ́ ni àìlera. Not knowing is not the real weakness. Refusing to learn is. So let's learn together. Let's forget social media for a moment. Let's forget rumors. Let's forget the loud voice. Let's ask one simple question. If ordinary entrepreneurs are not paying billions to register their businesses, who is? Banks, insurance companies, telecommunication giants, oil companies, manufacturing conglomerates, and why would any company voluntarily declare such enormous capital? That answer completely changed the way I look at business, because I realized big companies don't think differently because they are rich. Many of them became rich because they learned to think differently. And trust me, when you understand Many of them became rich because they learned to think differently. And trust me, when you understand that mindset, you will never look at your small business the same way again. So forget the headline for a minute. Let's follow the money, because the deeper we went, the more we discovered that the biggest lessons was never about billions. It was about understanding how businesses actually grow. And that is where our investigation takes a completely unexpected turn. You know what surprised me the most? The more I investigated, the more I realized the problem wasn't the headline. The problem was our mindset. Because Nigerians, we have one habit. We hear one shocking statement and instead of asking questions, we start spreading it. Somebody hears registering a company can cost over 2 billion naira. Before evening, it becomes CAC Nachas 2 billion naira. By tomorrow morning, it becomes government no wan poor people to go do business o. Then one uncle on WhatsApp add his own seasoning. Another person records a TikTok video. A Facebook page post it. Everybody becomes an expert. Nobody check the facts. My people, business no be by forwarding message. Business na by understanding information. Let me tell you one thing I learned while running my own business. Ignorance is expensive, but confidence inside ignorance is even more expensive, because when somebody is confidently wrong, they can mislead thousands of people. That is why every entrepreneur must learn to verify information, not because you are stubborn, but because your future depends on the quality of your decision, and your decision depends on the quality of your information. Bad information is not a hidden business expenses. It does not appear in your cash book, but it can cost you opportunities, customers, and even your dreams. Now, let me ask you another question. If you hear that one company declared 500 billion naira share capital, does that mean they carried 500 billion naira cash? Inside Ghana must go bags to CAC. Omo, if na so business dey work, many companies for don close shop o. That was the exact point where my investigation took another turn, because I discovered many entrepreneurs don't even understand what share capital means. The moment they hear that word, their brain automatically translates into money in the bank. But business is not always that simple, and that is exactly why people panic. Yoruba people say ohun tí a kò mọ̀ a máa ń bẹ̀rù rẹ̀ ni. What we don't understand, we naturally fear. Fear is always caused by danger. Sometimes fear is caused by ignorance. The day knowledge enters, fear quietly packs its load and leaves. Think about electricity. When we were children, many of us feared electricity, not because electricity hated us, but because we did not understand it. As we learned, we became careful. Instead of being afraid, business is exactly the same. The more you understand, the better decisions you make. Now, here is where the story becomes really interesting. When I stopped reading social media and started studying how businesses actually work, I discovered something. Big companies don't register big share capital to oppress small businesses. They register it because the kind of business they are building requires a completely different level of funding, ownership, responsibility, and regulation. That is a different conversation entirely. It's like comparing a danfo driver to an airline. Both transport people, but nobody expects both of them to operate under the same rules. One needs a driver license, the other needs aviation regulators, maintenance engineers, billions in aircraft, insurance, and international compliance. Same industry, different skill, different responsibilities, different laws, and suddenly everything started making sense. Imagine this: your neighbor buys a trailer. Tomorrow morning, you wake up and sell your motorcycle because you too want a trailer. Question: will the trailer automatically make you richer? No. In fact, it may bankrupt you because you copy the vehicle without understanding the business. How many entrepreneurs are doing exactly that today? Copying the appearance without understanding the assignments. And that is why Street MBA with Kapick exists. Not to make you feel small, not to make you chase billionaires, but to help you understand where you are so you can confidently take the next step. Whether you are selling perfumes, running a POS business, owning a barber shop, managing a fashion brand, operating a supermarket, or building the next great Nigeria company, the principles remain the same. Understand first, act second, never reverse the order. Because after all my research, I finally realized something. The 2 billion naira headline was never the biggest story. The biggest story was hidden inside one question that almost nobody was asking. What exactly is share capital, and why would any company willingly declare billions of naira Omo, when I finally understood the answer, I stopped looking at business registration the same way, and I promise you, before this documentary is over, you will never look at it the same way again. Let's open that door together in part 2.